the Kigali Declaration was an eye-opener. Some of us have worked, like, for example, in the media, and issues to do with domestic violence are not like issues because we've grown up in this kind of society where some of these things we see now and talked about as the violence against women and girls as normal living, normal culture. Those are the traditions, those are the norms that even if you walk your way and a man taps your bum, it is normal. They will say that now he has just touched you. What does it do to do with your life? So the declaration is a call to action.
Imagine a world where we have gender equality and equity in and through media. That is our mission at African Women in Media. I'm Dr. Yemisi Akimbobola, your host, and this is Her Media Diary, a podcast that captures the lived experiences of African women working in media industries. In this episode, I am joined by Sarah Mawerere, a senior broadcast journalist at the Uganda Broadcasting Corporation, UBC. Sarah shares her experience growing up in the rural Busoga region of Uganda, where she faced numerous challenges, including the loss of both parents at a young age. Despite these hardships, she pursued a dream of becoming a journalist, inspired by the voices she heard on Radio Uganda as a child. Throughout this series, we'll be in conversation with some of the signatories of the Kigali Declaration on the Elimination of Gender Violence in and through media in Africa by 2034, which is an initiative co-designed with the African Women in Media community. And in these conversations, we'll find out how these individuals have implemented the tenets of the declaration in their work as media practitioners. By inviting these voices into conversation, we hope to provide solutions to breaking down barriers faced by African women in media. So I always like to start off by getting to know my guests and their background. So what can you tell us about yourself, Sarah?
Oh, okay. My name is Sarah Mawerere. I'm a journalist. I'm a broadcast journalist. I work at Uganda Broadcasting Corporation. In short, we call it UBC. I mainly do radio.
So often my guests usually kind of go straight to tell us about their accomplishments and their work and stuff, which is what you've done. But I really want to get to know who you are and where did you grow up in Kampala?
No, I did not grow up in Kampala.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in a rural setting in the eastern part of Uganda. And this region is called Busoga Region. I was raised in a humble family of 7 children.
Wow.
My mother passed on, my father passed on. So we were brought up by relatives. So I grew up in a rural setting. This is where I went I began my school, the lower level, but I joined the town. There is a town called Ginger Town. Formerly it was the industrial town of the country, where I joined to do my high school.
Yeah.
So after high school is when I went to Kampala to do higher studies.
But what was it like growing up? Remind me the name of the place, the region?
Busoga Region.
Busoga Region. What was it like growing up in Busoga Region?
Of course, when you grow up in a rural setting, then many years ago, it was a rural place where we could not maybe have access to some amenities like electricity. We lacked tarmac road. We lacked this kind of, modern schools. They were rural schools. So we were in just this last mile of our country where you find life is not as compared to the urban life. So I grew up in a rural setting where we lacked all those. But of course, we juggled. I went to school through a rural setting and until I joined the town where I went to pursue my higher studies.
But what are your earliest, fondest memory of growing up there?
Well, I remember when we were growing, traditionally, we were told, for example, as girls, we were groomed to be women.
Right.
I remember in a rural town, in a rural setting as compared to town, in rural areas is where maybe you find to be told the cultural norms, is where you find to have you touch base with reality. They could tell you in this region and in our tribe we do this, and as a woman you are supposed to kneel before a man, you are supposed to be cooking, you are supposed to be submissive to a man, and there are other things we could do as girls. They tell you, girls, you are shaped like this in order to be a good woman in the future.
But I want to hear some of your fond memories. So, and we'll come back to some of those kind of traditional norms that you've mentioned. But what are some of your good memories of growing up in that region? Some of your earlier memories growing up. You said you're one of 7 children. What was that like?
Yes, we were alive then. So the best memories is to grow in this kind of a communal setting where we had the protection of the elders,
Mm,
where we had defense, people who are defenders for our rights on the village. And the best memories were, do you know, like studying in a rural setting, but you excel and you join higher school with a good grade, despite the challenges that we faced in a rural setting. So there are so many memories. There are so many. But yes, we grew up 3 boys and 4 girls. And in the birth rank, I'm the fifth.
okay.
Then a boy followed me. Then there was our last born.
Mm,
So what I remember is that I was among the young children of my father and my mother. So the grown-ups, the first 4, at least the first 4 grown-ups, the big sisters and the brothers. Of course, by the time we grew up, like the 2 of them had already left home. For me, by the time I became an adult, like being in the higher school, in the higher class of school, that left us, that gone to town to fend for themselves. But I remember knowing that at least I had brothers, I had sisters, but the difficult moment is when we lost our father. Our father
mm,
died when we were, some of us, like me personally, I was about 6 years.
okay.
Yes. And growing up without a father, traditionally, it is the father who is the defender of the home, who is the provider. Even if we had plenty of food on the farm, traditionally we had all varieties of food. But of course, there was this hand of the father of paying school fees, the hand of the father of being there for you, even to decide on what is done in a home. Our mother was not with that power. But when my father died, of course, my mom now had to take on the role. But she was this lady who was not empowered enough to play the role of the father. But we grew up with her up to the time when we all, even us the young ones, joined high school, and we left her alone in the village, plus other distant relatives that were also keeping her in the home.
Mm.
But even before I started working, she died also. She passed on. So that's how life has been. It has not been a soft journey, but of course we juggle and we reach where we are.
Yeah. And you talked about kind of the impact on the family of your dad passing. How did that change your direction you were going at the time? What impact did it have for you personally?
Sincerely, the direction of my life changed a lot. It did change because I had aspirations as a growing child. Like me personally, I used to look up to some personalities, some people. I could listen to the radio. The only radio then in the country, the government radio, was Radio Uganda. I remember at the age of 5, the age of 4, my father could tune his radio. And you know, the radio had some segments, it had this particular time and slots where he could listen in. Sometimes the radio could go off The announcer in studio could say, the radio is going off, we shall come back after 2 hours. So I could listen in to my father, and I was like, when will I also grow up and I go and speak in that radio like the way I'm hearing that man talking? But now all these aspirations come along with your achievement. Like, for example, you have to strive to reach where you aspire to reach. And this is through school, which school didn't go well for me. There was a time we could even sit after the death of our father. We could sit for 2 years without going to school because even the relatives who could support were not there at the moment. So there comes some time and we are uplifted. But if it was not for the commitment, for the interest and resilience that I had, I would not even continue with the school up to the higher level. But anyway, I'm lucky that as we speak now, I reached this dream of mine, but it was through hurdles. You go to school, you sit. You even aspire to go to a better school, but you cannot afford because the person to pay for your fees is not there. And the relative who is helping is not this kind of person who can give you priority than his or her your children. So it really made me learn that, of course, when you have your biological child, your own biological child, there is a way you have these special feelings as compared to maybe just having a child that is not yours. Because it made me think that a parent who produced you can feel for you. Leave alone the instances where you can say there are parents who cannot care, there are parents who cannot care. But a real parent who gave life to you, brought you on earth, there is a way they treat you, the biological child, than those other adopted children. Leave alone those other instances. I grew up knowing it. I saw it when we were growing. So all these aspirations were not achieved as I did, because now, even through school, I went through stages. Like after high school, I first did a diploma. And why diploma? Because the grades I'd attained at that level of high school did not enable me go straight to the university. And during our time, if you don't score highly, you couldn't go to university. Leave alone today, where you find institutions of higher learning and all universities have now opened up that when at least you have 2 principal passes and you are able to pay for yourself for university education, you can join. It was not the case. During my time, it was government sponsoring all students that had passed.
Yeah.
And that time, it was something like, I think that time when I completed school, there were just 2 public universities. That was Mawerere University and Chambogo University. And government was the one selecting the best students countrywide and paying for them tuition and upkeep at the university. If you don't attain those grades, you don't have the chance to go. But actually, there were also chances that those other students that don't perform to that level and have some grades which could take them to pursue a certificate or a diploma, they were also institutions. But the best institutions in this country then were government institutions, actually, like vocational institutes. They were still government. But now, if you still don't qualify to go to such vocational institutes, my time, I could still just maybe look around for a private institution, because there are private institutions which could still take on these other students that have not had a chance to join the government institutions. So you go there, you first do a diploma through those stages. You first do a diploma. After the diploma, you now juggle to look for a job. And I struggled on my own to look for a place. And the only place I could look to work or to do internship was Radio Uganda, the government radio, which I used to listen to that time when I was growing and when my father was still alive and I was very, very young. So I come, I look for internship, and at the place where you've connected yourself for internship, you don't know anybody there. Because I came just by my own, look for internship. Luckily, I was fixed. And when I was fixed for internship, I did not go away. After the internship, I remained working here, but it was not easy. You just maybe look for people, you just humble yourself, you look for senior people, you tell them your problem, you tell them what your interests are, and you ask them for help. Can you please in any way help me, fix me here? Then they will tell you this is a government institution. Currently, government is not recruiting. You have to wait for recruitment time. But is there any way you can fix me, maybe to just practice and I gain this experience? They will tell you, yes, we can try. But how will you manage coming every day? Because we are not going to pay you. There is no money to pay you. Now you try to walk by yourself coming. You walk a distance of more than 3 kilometers to and fro to come and do your internship. And even after internship, you have to request to keep around to grow in your career. So that is the journey, briefly, I can share here.
Yeah. All right. So it's interesting to hear your kind of reflections on the time of when your dad was still here with us and the influence of the radio during that period when he was ill and how you kind of aspired to that in your journey from where you grew up to trying to get that internship. And it sounds very much like you paved the way for yourself, like, and you also talked about how your mom in that process also passed away. So and I know that you talked about her not being empowered to support the family the way perhaps your dad could, right? So, what impact did that have on you and the person that you think you become today?
The impact that it has had on my life is in life, all of things happen. You can lose a parent, you can lose your father, you can lose your mother, but when you're still living and you grow up, you find your way to the destiny. You look for ways to survive, you look for ways to find work, you look for ways to connect to people who can help. And actually, the impact I feel, I should say, is positive that that kind of situation did on my life. Is positive in a way that it taught me a lesson that in this journey, in the journey of life, the journey of growing up, each child ought to have a parent that can fend for you, a parent that can provide the basics for you, a parent that can be there, but it is not guaranteed that you'll grow up with this parent. So I've learned that one day in life, I have to be this kind of a person who can inspire other people who face life challenges like I've faced to grow up, to be resilient, to continue growing up, to continue with life despite the challenges here. But not only that, actually to use some platforms. For example, I'm a media practitioner and I have a platform on which I can go talk out these things, inspire communities, inspire young people who also faced similar challenges that I also faced, trying to do and to design this kind of media products or programs that can inspire the country, can inspire communities, the society to work towards helping young people to grow, towards working well to ensure that the children need to be protected, more so the girl child, because girls are vulnerable so much in this circumstance. By nature, a girl child is vulnerable. Even boys, when they face such challenges, they are also vulnerable. However, a girl is more vulnerable to the extent that they can be prey to their counterparts who can maybe harass them. Like, for example, there is a girl on our village. She has faced life challenges going to school. She lost her father, but at senior two, she gets pregnant. And when she gets pregnant, she gave birth. And guess what? She's staying with the stepfather. Her mother, after their father died, her mother remarried. And when she remarried, she took on with these children. she had produced before, and they are staying in this kind of a home. So when she produced, she was like, now I've come to the end of it all. She says, how do I continue on this journey to get the basic education that I require? And this is a living story. This girl gives birth, and now she's staying with the stepdad where the mother is married and the mother is there. The mother also has produced other children. But now when she comes up to say, now I've weaned my child from the breasts, I have to go back to school. No one is helping. Even reaching the level of senior two, she was struggling to reach there. The mother could go and dig for other people. She goes to ask for cheap labor to support her through school. And now this girl was just raped.
Wow.
She says she was raped in senior two. She was raped because now some young men on the village were advancing their love messages to her. She was refusing. So one evening, she had gone to look for firewood. She went a far distance to look for firewood, and she says she was raped. But whether raped or not raped, because this is a story told by her, and she was an girl and 17 years old. Whether raped or she accepted. But what I can say, she's vulnerable. Maybe she can even be enticed more by a man, and she accepts to go with the man. And she's not ready, she cannot protect herself, and maybe her first encounter with this guy, she gets pregnant. So with this, I should tell you that this thing has impacted me. I've seen these stories as I grow. I've gone through the hurdles
Yeah.
of reaching where we are. So it has impacted me to have this good heart to help, to have this good heart to inspire, to have this good the heart and the energy to come up and look out for ways through which I can also access resources to help such children.
Hello, Immediate Diary listeners. Now, permit me to introduce you to the Kigali Declaration on the Elimination of Gender Violence in and through Media in Africa by 2034. And we here at IWMF call it the Kigali Declaration. It's a groundbreaking commitment by African women in media to bring gender equality, representation, and respect into every newsroom across the continent. By signing up, media organizations, professionals, platforms, regulators, and academics are pledging to tackle gender barriers, amplify women's voices, and create safer, more inclusive work environments for everyone. Imagine a media landscape that treats every story with balance and every voice with dignity. Adopting the Kigali Declaration isn't just a commitment, it's a powerful step forward towards social change, and it starts with you and I. If you're ready to be part of this change, visit the official Kigali Declaration website at africanwomeninmedia.com/declaration to learn more and to sign up. So, as you know, at the IWMF 23 conference in Kigali last year, we co-designed the Kigali Declaration on the Elimination of Gender Violence in and through Media in Africa by 2030. And you are one of the many signatories of that declaration, which was also adopted at the conference. Can you tell me, what does the declaration mean to you and your work as women in media? And especially reflect on some of the things you just shared with us about how you kind of feel a sense of responsibility towards helping other women and girls.
It is a call to action. But before I go into the gist of this, I would like to say that the Kigali Declaration was an eye-opener. Some of us have worked, like, for example, in the media, and issues to do with domestic violence or violence against women and girls are not like issues, because we've grown up in this kind of society where some of these things we see now and talked about as the violence against women and girls as normal living, normal culture. Those are the traditions, those are the norms that even if you walk your way and a man taps your bum, it is normal. They will say that now he has just touched you. What does it do to do with your life? So the declaration is a call to action. And actually, let me say it's a wake-up call, to media, for example, media. And media is very, very key when it comes to issues to do with development, when it comes to issues to do with to reform or to take action. Messages that are taken to society through media are taken to be gospel truth. And secondly, media plays an important role of setting the agenda, of generating a debate for action, for policy formulation. So the Kigali Declaration, where I was in attendance, was indeed, to me, very good, because even like to some of us, was something good, because a lot was said, and what is contained in there, a lot. For example, in the declaration, I read that media houses have to ensure that the content that is aired should be gender sensitive. The language and in the content and the language used in the media should be gender sensitive. And this is geared at fighting issues surrounding gender and gender violence. And gender violence, of course, which is violence against women, and it is perpetrated in society, so it's perpetrated by the male counterparts. So for me, the declaration should be taken further. And as on my part, when I returned, and since I'm in charge of content, I was like, it is high time we also started thinking alike. It's high time we started putting on paper and putting in place something that can make us move forward. Because anything to do with women, anything to do with girls, is something connected to development. It is not issues that are traditionally said and like in society that is just a mere girl. If I touch you, so what? What have I done? If I tap your breast, have I done anything? Because these are the usual things. But now, when such debates are brought afore and are debated upon, this is what I can say, that it is high time we started talking about them, because it is an agenda globally being moved. And when, by sense, if you listen to some talks, you say, yes, let there be balance. Not balance that are making women to be very bad, to undermine the counterparts, the men, or to be violent or what, but just to deal with that particular essence of having sanity at the workplace, for example, for to have respect for women and girls. And if a man, for example, has picked interest in a woman or a girl, let there be good advance. And we have seen that if a person is approached very well and the person feels also has liked this man, it's okay. But this kind of harassment, of making women to be like they are subjects of all this harassment, or men to have in their mind that it's okay, women are here, and of course society has to take them that they were created for men. No, there should be someone to decide if she's also interested in what you are advancing, but not the other way around.
Yeah. So, as a senior broadcast journalist at UBC, Ugandan Broadcasting Corporation, what have you and your organization done to implement the Kigali Declaration? And perhaps you could also reflect on because it's one thing for you to kind of be inspired, as you've said, and to even try to implement, but how do you maintain that momentum?
In our organization, of course, some time back, there was a policy on sexual harassment, but of course, it was this week and it needs to be reignited. And what we did, like me, after seeing this, we saw the ideas, because we've had even several trainings. And when the declaration was done, I was like, now we've been having these casual talks, but there is no serious implementation. So now, what we are doing is to ensure that at least in our content, in fact, we've come up with a slogan, at least in the department where I am, in the radio, let there be gender content balancing in all our programs. We've termed it as the gender equality in content, whereby we want to report in the news, we want to package programs that go on air, not just a mere packaging, but at the back of our mind, we want to put voices of women and voices of men in balance in our work for purposes of promoting this in our work, for purposes of creating this kind of change in society, that both men and women have equal opportunities, both men and women have equal rights, both women and men have equal access to the resources. Because if we don't do this, then there is no way we can carry on whatever has been designed and whatever has been brought on board, like this declaration. So this is what, like me myself, as I told you, I'm in charge of content in the department where I work at UPC. And what we are doing, in fact, is to see if you are doing this piece of work and it is going on air, is there a voice of a woman? If that we need two voices, at least one voice should be for a man and the other for a woman. Yes, if the voices are supposed to be three in this kind of piece, as we decide, it doesn't do any harm to have three voices. Out of the three voices, doesn't do any harm to have two voices for women and one for a man. If there are four, let them be at least divided equally, two for women, two for men. But in fact, even ourselves, there is a way we are checking ourselves that a piece, a program, in whichever format, without the voice of a woman, yeah, even ourselves just checked and we are like, we are lacking this. So it has already come to our senses that when we do our work, we should do this. Why do we come to do this? As I told you, we have picked interest in it, and we've come also to realize that things to do with subjecting women to this kind of harassment, to ignoring girls, should be dealt with. A world that deserves peace must have both men and women on board, across the board.
So, when you look ahead now, what changes do you hope to see in media in Uganda in terms of gender representation and the coverage of issues affecting women, particularly things related to what the Kigali Declaration is about, which is gender based violence?
We see that these programs are educative enough. They are carrying the proper messages to society, to the public, to the audience, talking about the harm, talking about the dangers that accrue from sexual or domestic violence, violence against women. And when we put in voices, we put in the voices of both men and women, and they speak out. There is a way society, and this society which is composed of both men and women, hear both sides, hear both the voices of women and men. And when they hear these voices, there is a way such a media house is trusted. And do you know, we were doing it but casual. At times you can even miss out. At times you can even not include a woman in a whole program of 1 hour. You include only men. So when we realize that it is important to put the voices of women too, to speak out, and when we try to find out all the feedback that we normally receive, it's like the media house, especially these local channels, we are this big and huge organization with so many channels serving the different regions of the country. And when we gather audience feedback, we see that there is a way the audience is trusting us and they keep listening to us all the time. They even know how exactly we have to package these programs. We have to see how well we have to do it so that we continue making people listening to us, so that when they continue listening to us, we continue educating the nation. And it benefits because the listenership is increasing, the trust of our media organization. I'm telling you, there is a way I feel happy when I move to the countryside, especially to the target areas. When I move there, And the people are like, hey, you are the one. You are the people who speak on our radio. She's the one. You know that happiness. And they say, you even put our women, they speak. Then the women themselves say, when women speak on your radio, it encourages us also. Bambi, next time, Bambi. Bambi means next time when you come, sincerely, you also include us. You see the beauty of doing one program that has attracted all these people who are listening, the listenership, and now they say, continue also, by the way, including us in your program. And we continue now encouraging more women who are even timid to speak. Now they can speak, and they are very free to speak, because these kind of programs are even also teaching the men that when a woman speaks on radio, there is nothing bad. If she speaks out her thing, that this is how we are treated, this is how this is what we require. So there is a way how society is sensitized to appreciate the element of gender, and to also get to know that what the vice of maybe violence against women and girls is bad, because the content that is contained in there is so educative and very good, and can create awareness amongst them, and they appreciate. So you see how change is being created through the radio. And the beauty about it is doing it in the local language, in the various local languages. We are designed with this kind of channels. Like if I want, like in my area, they speak Lusoga, and we package a program in Lusoga intended for them. We are targeting that audience, and we carry this message to them. There is a way they feel good, because this message is carried better in the local language. And the beauty about even the kind of media we work for, radio, according to the census of the nation, the population census, has still put radio atop, that it is number one disseminator of information to the public. And imagine you use the radio, which is number one disseminator, number one conduit to the nation, and you package very well. You sensitize people about this pertinent issue about violence against women and girls, and the nation the people are glued onto it and are listening and taking the message. It is very good. May I see it as a positive impact that we are creating.
Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you so much, Sarah, for your time. It's been really inspirational hearing your story and then also hearing your commitment to the declaration. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast.
You're welcome.
Sarah's story encourages us all to reflect on the role we play in promoting gender equality and to consider how we use our platforms to create positive change. As a senior broadcast journalist, Sarah is now using her platform to advocate for gender equality and to challenge societal norms that have long been accepted. The Kigali Declaration on the Elimination of Gender Violence in and through media in Africa by 2034 has been a significant influence in her work, and she sees it as a call to action, urging media houses to ensure that their content is gender sensitive and that the voices of women and men are represented equally. This episode is a reminder of the impact that one person can have when they are driven by a purpose greater than themselves. Drop me an email at dmc@africanwomeninmedia.com with your thoughts, and let me know if you'd like to join me on an episode of this podcast. To find out more about African Women in Media and our work, visit our main website at africanwomeninmedia.com. In the show notes, there's a list of organizations and resources to support you if you have experienced any of the topics we've discussed today. Also, don't forget to subscribe and follow Her Media Diary on your favorite podcasting platforms. And if you are in Sierra Leone, you may tune into our partner radio, Rise Radio 96.3 FM, every Saturday at 4 p.m. to catch an episode of Her Media Diary. And don't forget, join the conversation using the hashtag Her Media Diary.
Her Media Diary is a product of African Women in Media, an NGO advocating for gender equality in the media industry. And this episode was hosted by Dr. Yemisi Akimbobola, produced and edited by Blessing Odeobase as part of a 4-episode series on the Kigali Declaration. All music featured in this podcast is by Nana Kwabena. Thanks for listening and join us again next time.